Okay, everybody, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
This week is National Infertility Awareness Week. 1 in 8 American couples suffer from infertility. And according to the CDC, they estimate that up to 7 million women have trouble conceiving or carrying a pregnancy. My parents, as it happens, also struggled. But after 7 years of taking drugs, my mother, God bless her, had 3 kids in less than 4 years. So, go Ponce. This is personal for cantor templates as well, and I'm happy to call on the cantor now to share her story with us.
Thank you, Rabbi. So some of you have heard this before. I told my story a couple years back. I've shortened it a little, but bear with me, it's a little long. The date was November 3rd, 2011. After 3 long years, our doctor finally uttered those words we had waited so long to hear: "You're pregnant." To say it was an emotional roller coaster would be an understatement. Our journey had been a difficult one. We had seen more doctors and nurses than I can name, spent tens of thousands of dollars on medication, intrauterine inseminations, acupuncture, nutritionists, and finally onto in vitro fertilization. We watched countless friends and family members experience the joy of welcoming children into their families, and even watched others who had gone through infertility bring home beautiful babies. It challenged our marriage, it challenged our careers, it challenged our friendships, our family relationships. Indeed, it challenged every single aspect of our lives. One thing you learn very quickly when you go through fertility treatment is how unique you are not. Infertility comes in all shapes, colors, and sizes. Approximately 1/3 of infertility is attributed to a female partner, 1/3 attributed to a male partner, and 1/3 is caused by a combination of problems in both partners or is unexplained. The bottom line is that more than 1 out of every 8 couples have trouble getting pregnant or sustaining a pregnancy. Whether in the Bible or in modern day, the emotions of infertility cannot be denied. I once asked the women from an infertility support group on Facebook that I participate in to describe in one word how going through infertility made them feel. I heard words like failure, broken, exhausted, defective, embarrassed, isolated, frustrated, alone, inferior, left out, scared, angry, hopeless, devastated, unrelatable, unfeminine, faulty, hopeless, and sad, to just name a few. I have to admit that my question here was faulty. You see, there's not one word to describe how infertility made us feel. Imagine feeling all of these emotions at once while having to still go to work, see friends and family, and do all of the things that happen on a daily basis. One thing that really helped me was to hear other people's stories, which is why I have always chosen to be outspoken with mine. So in that spirit, I would like to share our story and tell you our journey to earning the greatest titles in the world of mom and dad. It was early 2009. Ari and I were living in Philadelphia. That's my husband, if you don't know. And I was in cantorial school at Gratz College. I was having some vocal issues, so I found myself in the office of an endocrinologist after a lump on my thyroid was discovered. After sharing my medical history with this doctor, he rang the alarm bell and asked us, "Are you guys ever thinking of having kids? Because if you are, you should start that process sooner rather than later." The truth is that Ari and I were not thinking about kids, not yet. We were married for less than 2 years. We were enjoying vacations and dinners out with friends and sleeping in on the weekends. It just wasn't time for kids yet. That doctor went on to explain that he didn't know how long it would take us to have children and that we may have some struggles based on some medical issues I had since I was a kid. It scared us. We didn't really feel ready, but we knew we wanted to have children. We went home that night, talked about it, cried a little, and the very next day I was on the phone with a reproductive endocrinologist. At our first appointment, our doctor said, "This is like Harry Potter playing Quidditch for the first time. We just have to find the right broom that fits you." The truth was, it was not an exact science, and we had to be patient. I think even our doctor was surprised at just how long it would take to find our broom. What started as a single appointment quickly turned into pills, shots, and more early morning doctor's appointments than I care to remember. The phrase, "I am sorry, your body is just not responding," became a constant theme song in my head. Finally, we found a medication that would work for me, which brought our second hurdle. It worked a little bit too well. I found myself right back in the doctor's office with a potentially serious complication called ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. So my body had gone from not producing enough eggs to producing too many eggs. It may not sound like much of a problem, but it can land you in the hospital and is as painful as any pain I've ever experienced. It may not seem to be conventional wisdom, but too many eggs is not better than too few. This medication was not going to work. After a few failed inseminations, it became clear that in vitro fertilization, or IVF, was going to be our best option for a successful fertility treatment cycle result in a pregnancy. At that point, we needed a break. Ari and I were emotionally drained, and my body needed some time to heal. It had been over a year and a half of constant hormonal injections, medications, poking, and prodding. I needed a rest. So we refocused our lives. I graduated from cantorial school, and we moved to Connecticut. In Connecticut, we found new doctors, great doctors. I remember distinctly our lead doctor looking at me in the eye and saying, "Just remember, you don't even need to have a uterus to have a child. There are lots of ways to become a parent, and we will find the best way for you." It was right after the high holidays, the holidays where Ari and I just prayed, "Please, God, let this work." I knew that if this didn't work, we would have to start exploring other options. And while there's certainly other viable options, I was not ready to give up on the dream of giving birth to my own child. And so we went forward. When they did our egg retrieval, on my birthday no less, we got 17 eggs, which created 6 viable embryos, 6 chances at our dream. This was considered to be very successful, as very often couples who go through all of this get only 1 or 2 or no embryos at all. We were thrilled. One benefit of going through IVF is that we can pick the timing of trying to get pregnant. Because I'm a cantor, I did not want to be pregnant at the next year's high holidays, so we waited a bit. On October 24th, 2011, we did our embryo transfer. Now, all we had to do was wait 10 days and pray for a miracle. Soon after the transfer, I knew it worked. I can't explain why, but I just felt it. I didn't need the doctor to tell me I was pregnant, other than for confirmation that I wasn't just going crazy, and that our miracle was finally coming. We told our parents and siblings and Ari's grandparents, who had been so supportive during our struggles. One of the great blessings of our lives was getting to tell them all that we would have a child, as we all cried together. Other than gaining a whole bunch of weight and craving eggplant parmesan on a daily basis, my pregnancy was fairly normal. Ari convinced me not to find out the sex of the baby, and I am glad he did. As he says, we needed to know so much: egg counts, size, hormone levels, and so much information that most couples never have to find out. This was one thing we did not need to know. We did have one more hurdle to get through. Just 5 days before I would ultimately give birth, Ari's grandmother passed away, and on my due date. Ari was very close to his bubby, and this was really hard on him and his whole family. With the funeral in Minnesota and our long-awaited baby due at any moment, Ari couldn't go. So instead, we stayed home and set up the nursery. I know this isn't really our custom to get things set up before the baby is born, but it seemed like the best thing to do to honor the life that was reaching its final resting place by getting ready to welcome the new one. 5 days later, our daughter, Amalia Rachel Teplitz, was born. A healthy, beautiful baby girl. Our dream was here. 3 years and 1 day later, we welcomed our second child from that same embryo transfer, Elijah Samuel Teplitz, and completed our perfect family. Fun fact, Elijah and Amalia are technically fraternal twins, even though they are separated by 3 years. They were conceived at the same time in the same cycle. Elijah just stayed frozen a little longer. So here's the thing. As difficult and as emotional as you can see it was for us to go through this, I'm glad we did go through it. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't wish infertility on my worst enemy, but I believe that going through this has made me a better parent, a better person, and yes, even a better cantor. When you go through so much just to have a baby, somehow the sleepless nights are a little bit less stressful. I am sure it won't surprise you that this was the hardest thing I have ever had to endure. But I am here to tell you and anyone going through infertilities, I survived it, and so can you. Those who know me well know that I am a bit of a control freak. Being told that something this important to me was going to be so difficult and that there was nothing I could do about it drove me crazy. But it also made me realize that you can't plan out everything. Sometimes you just have to relinquish control and let things happen the way they happen. Or as Ari always says, it is what it is. Speaking of Ari, I think it is important to remember that as lonely as infertility often feels, I was not the only one going through hell. Sure, Ari was not in physical pain from treatment, but the emotional pain that the supportive spouse or partner feels is not something to underestimate. It was easy for Ari to get lost in when all the focus was on me and how I was feeling and how I was responding. And Ari mostly held in his pain as to not make me feel worse. But his pain was there, the feeling of helplessness while someone you love goes through an emotional and physical trauma, the dark thoughts about negative potential outcomes, the always waiting for the other shoe to drop, and all this while still dreaming of being a father and wondering if that dream could ever come true. There is no question that Ari was invested in this as I was, and was going through his own pain while trying to manage mine. So let this be a reminder to offer a hug to the spouse not going through the actual treatment, but for standing by the side of the one who is. Believe me, they need it too. Something that I feel is very important to add is that for everything we went through, Ari and I consider ourselves very lucky. You see, it worked for us in the end. All of the blood, sweat, and tears turned into our 2 beautiful miracles. If you ever Google 12 things not to say to someone with infertility, you will find 12 life lessons that are good advice for all of us. Things like, don't worry, it'll happen, or trust me, you are better off without kids, or it could be worse, it could be cancer, or you're young, you've got plenty of time, or you can always just adopt, are all on the list, and all things that were said to me, some even by family and friends. I am here to tell you that they hurt. Be careful, be considerate, and remember, you do not know what you do not know. And keep in mind that infertility is not only a problem that impacts married heterosexual couples. There are thousands of gay couples and single people who are desperately trying to have children, no matter their gender, sexual orientation, or family makeup. They all have the same dream and need the same support. Ari and I also know firsthand how expensive of a process infertility can be. From conception to birth, Amalia cost us more than $35,000 out of pocket. Elijah was close to $20,000. And remember, we were successful on the first try with each of them. Imagine the cost for those who are not. For obvious reasons, this will always be a cause worthy of my family's tzedakah. As you and your family think about what organizations to support, I encourage you to seek out those who are helping dreams come true for every man and woman wanting so badly to be a parent, like the organization called Resolve that we care so deeply about. I hope this is a story about perseverance. I hope it is a reminder never to give up. Ari and I went through hell, never stopping in our quest to be parents. For me, I wanted to be a mom more than anything else. I was willing to stop at nothing, put my body and my bank account through hell to achieve that goal. I knew it would be hard, and no, I didn't always feel strong enough. But I had the support of our families and friends to get me through. I had to just keep my eye on the prize, and now a beautiful pair of curly-haired, blue-eyed kids call me mommy every day. I'm here to tell you not to give up. Even if something seems so out of reach that you can barely imagine it and takes so many hurdles getting there, never give up. I often live by the phrase, where there's a will, there's a way. And in our case, our dream came true. Thank you so much for listening to my story tonight, and Shabbat Shalom.
Cantor, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing so personally and intimately with us. As you mentioned, several of our biblical heroines like Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Hannah, they were all infertile and they prayed to God for intervention. So infertility is a major theme in the Torah, in the Bible. You know, today's medical technologies that the cantor described are truly miraculous, but also, as the cantor implied, for many people, they're simply too expensive. In the United States, only 19 states require some level of insurance coverage for infertility. That means that in the other 31 states, insurance companies don't have to offer infertility benefits. Many large insurance carriers don't include infertility coverage in their plans for their fully insured clients. Those clients have to pay extra to get the benefit. Compare the reality that I'm describing in the United States to the situation in Israel. In Israel funds IVF for any Israeli woman up to age 45, regardless of her marital status or sexual orientation, until she has 2 children, 2 kids with her current partner. Israel funds IVF so you can have 2 kids. Just seems like we could do a lot better. The psalmist describes the struggle of infertility and happiness of pregnancy in one verse when he wrote, "God transforms the barren woman into a joyous mother of children. Hallelujah." That's from Psalm 113. During this week of awareness and moving forward, I ask that we help more women gain access to IVF and other treatments so that more couples can experience the joy of children. Cantor, thank you again so much. Everyone, Shabbat Shalom.